Táax'aa. Okay. That works. Okay. Yanhawini. So I thought one thing we talked about last week was what I'd like to do, not really this week, but maybe a little bit next week, but for sure the week after. I think maybe we should take 2 weeks and just sort of use those first 2 weeks of the semester to kind of get back into the swing of things. Put this in front of you. And by week 3, we're going to shift to a schedule where we're kind of teaching. I'll be teaching concepts, and we'll be going over concepts on Tuesdays, and we're just going to try and move into the language and stay in the language for Thursday. So Thursday will be less teaching and more just sort of practicing being in the language. And I know this could be, the concept of immersion, I think, can be really scary. I think sometimes when we think of immersion, we sort of picture like we're going to be dropped into a foreign country and we need to, if we don't know how to talk to anybody, we're not going to accomplish anything. And so we have to find ways to take some of the pressure off. So when we do kind of immersion practice in here, the idea is we're going to find some topics, we're going to try and engage in those topics, and then it's going to reveal a lot of things. It's going to reveal things we don't understand yet and things we don't know how to say yet. But I think it's going to be good practice. And what I'm going to try to do is invite some different folks in who want to just hang out with us and just have an opportunity to speak in the language. I think we end up with some different stuff. So instead of kind of really big kind of language, like sometimes when we look at the oratory, like this Táax'aa story that we've been looking at, like that's really big language. But what we're going to be looking at is kind of smaller, kind of day-to-day language. So I thought if we're thinking about getting ourselves ready for an immersion experience, and we want it to be fun, we don't want it to be scary, we want it to be non-threatening. So some of the things that I recommend is just taking good notes. If there's something that you heard that you don't understand, take a note of that and we'll try to talk about that. I think what we'll do is we'll just sort of say, okay, we're going to talk about this topic, we're going to try it for 10 minutes, then we'll try it for 10 minutes, and then we'll stop and just see how it went. Then maybe if we're getting the hang of that, we might try 15, maybe 20. And ideally, by the end of the semester, we're ready to just come in and just talk in the language. I think it's really important to think about this strategy because my experience is a lot of people who go through the language classes, they understand how the language works, but they have a real challenge just speaking it. So we're trying to make it really as casual as possible. Just day-to-day language, things like that. But I thought maybe what we could start with is just a little brainstorming session. And there's 2 sort of ways that I'm thinking of this, and maybe you guys will think of others. But to be in an environment where we're only speaking Tlingit, there's kind of, the way I think of it is there's 2 sort of categories. One is, what do you need kind of philosophically or generally to help you feel better about it? And then the second is, what are some things that you feel like you need to learn how to say that maybe we can develop kind of a card? And maybe it's a little booklet, and it's just a survival booklet. And they've done similar things with other languages. I have one on my desk, I think it's called Instant Maori, and it's like just the top things that they think you need to learn how to say to be able to communicate with people. So, anybody have any ideas? We'll just do kind of an open brainstorm. Either things that you need, like, you know, I need to feel safe, or I need to be able to What do I do if I don't understand? Just sort of those things. And then what are some phrases that you want to learn how to say that you think will help you stay in the language? Because one of the things is if we try this, if we break the immersion, it's going to get just easier and easier to do so. But if we can just sort of figure out ways to build ourselves up to it, and it's sort of like we're going to just put our toes in the water at first, and we can do really short. And we can also have just sort of very, we could stick with things that we already know how to kind of talk about. Anybody got any thoughts on it? Oh, let me open the chat window just in case anybody's going to type. See if somebody already has. Táax'aa kush's gay. That's a good one. Okay. Oh, let me change. And we'll put these up here, and if you see something spelled wrong, let me know, and I'll also double check the spelling as I go along later. And then I'll make sure that you guys have this. Anybody know what that translates to? Táax'aa kush's gay.
Táax'aa kush's gay.
It's I don't understand. Let me make this a little bigger. So I don't understand. I think that's a good one to have. Okay, let's go hunting. And then you'd say, so let me double check the hunting. And yeah, and this could be just any things that you just want to learn how to say as well. Oops, I put the wrong verb up there. I said, let's go dancing.
Yeah. That's another one you could say, though.
Okay. Anach tu soon. Anach tu soon. Okay. So let's just. Let's get one more. Who buys gas this time? Artutsaka kwa'u ukakanihin yidat. Táax'aa kananig. Let's see who. Maybe we'll just say who's going to buy the gas. We don't need the time reference, maybe. Let's see. Oops. Kananig. Say it to me again. I have a question about using the verb dictionary. If I was using it to, I will wait. Wasach abdul qashin git qinach yukhat khayqiq. How do you say that phrase in Tlingit repeatedly? Oh, to how do people always say it? I guess that might be what you're thinking of. So if we put this up here, and we go down to ka for ask and say, and the one we're looking for is this one for ye yawaka. Ye yanaka is say it. This one's interesting because the ya and the ch'a switch places, but it's really deliberate. Like you should say ye ch'a, but you should also say ye yawaqa. So in the perfective, the preferred one is ya. In the imperfective, it's ch'a. So there's a couple ways you could say ye ch'a nuch, like somebody always says that. But the way to say like, how do you say that? I guess repeatedly, yuchayakek would be to say it regularly. But this is the one that I think might be being used, like yeyandekech, is people say this, they say it this way every time, right? And so this might be something, yeah, I guess it depends kind of on the context to know of what you're asking. So you might say, Táax'aa or Gwash Gunachish Yeyo Duwaka Yakdat Koa Itcha Yeyen Dekech. What do they say? Yechayati. Right? So maybe people say Gunachish in Yakutat. After that, every time people say Yechayati, whereas outside of Yakutat they might not do that. So the context with Yeyan Dekech is sort of like it's this thing that people always say. I will say, how do you say that phrase in Tlingit repeatedly? Yeah. Wasa yandekech is something you could say. But wasa chaduwaka is sort of this one. Wasa chayadeka. Oops. Wasa chayadeka. Okay. Okay. Ach ite dishi. Let's get that one. This is a good one. Help me. We did this one. Wasa. Do a sock. Blank. And the blank would be some English name. How do you say? And this is usually a name of something. So you're trying to get the name for wasatu sak starfish Tlingit inach yisakuke tzach, yeah, and then wasa kayaka. Is that how we're saying it?
I don't know. I always have said chaduwaka.
Chaduwaka. Which is interesting because it's the perfective.
Is that wrong?
Maybe it's yauduwaka.
But isn't that what they have in like what's the Tlingit phrase book? Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, is that in the Downhauer book?
Yeah, maybe. I don't
Okay.
know. I might be wrong.
Yeah, no, it might be. Hold on, let me check something real quick. Wait, come unplug to you. Okay. I'll check on that one. Wasakha chaduwaka is how I've heard it. Chayaduka. Huh. Yeah, so I'll spend the weekend trying to get this thing ready. Anything else that you guys are wondering you think it would help you. And we'll just keep this document going. And I'll just give you several versions of this as we go along. And then maybe we'll make a little booklet out of it. Because there's lots of things, too. As we look at, let's see, a great text is the Tlingit by the Downhowers, which I believe so. If we look at this text, this gives us some things to just sort of continue to push through and practice. There's lots of things that are in here. So we see, we'll just do these real quick. We'll just do a whole bunch of these. Wasa'iyati.
Wasa'iyati.
Kashwasakhat uti.
Kashwasakhat uti.
Khatyake.
Khatyake.
Wasa'iyati ish.
Wasa'iyati ish.
Kashwasa uti ach ish.
Kashwasa uti ach ish.
Kashushka. Neshka. Neshia.
Neshia.
Hagu.
Hagu.
Hatia.
Hatia.
How. Hatiagut.
How. Hatiagut.
How. Hatiat.
How. Hatiat.
Yakeyuch satini.
Yakeyuch satini.
Achtuwusigu ich satini.
Achtuwusigu ich satini.
Gunalchish hatiyagudi.
Gunalchish hatiyagudi.
Gunalchish hatiadi.
Gunalchish hatiyadi.
So we see the S and the P, that's singular and plural. Hande ijin.
Hande ijin.
Qanu.
Qanu.
Qayqeh.
Qayqeh.
Yadukaya qajait.
Yadukaya qajait.
Wedukaya qajait.
Wedukaya qajait.
Yadu dekhdana.
Yadu dekhdana.
Yakewa.
Yakewa.
Shakudzi.
Shakudzi.
Ishan.
Ishan.
Du. Chuk.
Chuk.
Hatla.
Hadla.
Sukke.
Suk.
Dewa.
Dewa.
Huch.
Hooch.
Shka.
Shka.
Usk.
Usk.
Yewa.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. I thought you were just saying.
Ayachawe.
Ayachawa.
E. Hwe.
Hwe.
Ha.
Ha.
How.
How.
Hachkwa.
Hachkwa.
Akana.
Agana.
Atskani.
Atskani.
Yuchatunk.
Yuchatunk.
Tlingit yuchatungi.
Tlingit yuchatungi.
Dekina yuchatungi.
Dekina yuchatungi.
Khatchiya achchke.
Khatchiya achchke.
There was a guy who used to work in Costco, and he knew. I'd seen him a lot, and he's not around anymore. Someone said, he knows Tlingit. I was like, what? So the next time I went to Costco, and he's looking at my receipt, I was thinking, I was like, should I do it? Should I do it? And I said, Tlingit chiya achchke. And he said, Chayeku gwenk. Little bit. Tlingit chiya achch.
Tlingit agechriya achch.
Ah, Tlingit chacha achch.
Ah, Tlingit chacha achch.
Ah, Chayeku genk.
Ah, Chayegu gank.
Tlingit shtuchal tu.
Tlingit shtuchal tu.
So here's the duasak.
I guess it's not in here.
Yeah, not that chaduaka, which is that's how I've heard it. Chaduaka. Chosaku.
Chosaku.
Kal chosaku.
Kal chosaku.
Yisakuga.
Yisikuga.
Yisakuga.
Yisukuge.
So this one, I should point out that it has a perfective marker on there. Sometimes I hear people say isakuge, but it should be yisukuge. So we should hear that, the y on there. Wutusaku.
Wutusiku.
Keshwatusaku.
Keshutusaku.
Ausaku.
Ausaku.
Keshawasku.
Keshawasku.
Hasausaku.
Hasausaku.
Keshhasawasku.
Keshhasawasku.
Wududzaku.
Wududzaku.
Heshwadusku.
Heshwadusku.
How would you translate those last two?
Wududzaku. They know? Wait, no.
Wududzaku.
Wududzaku.
So hasausaku would be they know.
Mm-hmm.
Wududzaku.
He or she.
Ausaku would be he or
Ausaku,
she
yeah.
knows.
Oh, people?
It is known.
known.
It is known. And then keshwudusku. It's unknown. It's an unknown thing. It's unknown. Okay. Chwasatin. Keshchwasatin.
Keshchwasatin.
Yisatinage.
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 Keshakwe yisatin.
Keshakwe yisatin.
Wutusatin.
Wutusatin.
Okay. Keshwatusatin.
Keshwatusatin.
Ausatin.
Ausatin.
Keshawastin.
Keshawastin.
Hasausatin.
Hasausatin.
Keshhasawastin.
Keshhasawastin.
Gunalchish. Atlain gunalchish. You could also say gunalchish tlain. So there's subtle differences. Atlain gunalchish would literally translate to like many thanks. Gunalchish tlain would be big thanks. Yechayati.
Yechayati.
Yakecha.
Yakecha.
So yakecha is something you could, it just means that's great. The cha is, it really just puts emphasis on whatever has been said right before it. It could also translate sort of as you see, just sort of calling attention to something. Okay, so it's time to go. Dekwagut.
Dekwagut.
Kakwagute.
Kakagute.
Yake.
Yake.
Suhaku.
Suhagu.
Suhaku kwan.
Suhagu kwan.
So the kwan part just puts it just softens the command a little bit. It's not like
Do come
please.
again. I like that. That's a
Yeah,
good
it's not like
translation.
please, but it's kind of that way. I remember I said it to my daughter one time, and I don't speak English to them, so it's always fun to see how they absorb the language. And I think I said something like "Haku kwan," and she said, "I'm not a boot." Suhachantga.
Suhachantgu.
Suhachantgu kwan.
Suhachantgu kwan.
Suhadekakwagut.
Suhadekakwagut.
Nachtu art.
Nachtu art.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll do some more of these, but we're just sort of brainstorming. We'll keep this list running. This is the plan this semester. Is we'll spend these first 2 weeks just sort of getting back in the rhythm of things. But what I want to do is Tuesdays is we'll do lessons. Thursdays we're just going to do immersion, where we're just going to get into the language and stay in the language, and we'll take turns leading things. So what I'll do is next week I'll bring a sign-in sheet. Everybody will pick their days. And let's say we're getting together and it's a Thursday. And just as an example, if it was your guys' week, next Thursday you would give us some things that we're going to talk about. That way we can go study them. Then we come back in and talk about those things. Some of the things that I really like to see people try is to be descriptive with language, because I think some of the things that we try to do is we move from naming things. Because we learn a language, we learn how to name things, and we learn a bunch of memorized phrases, then we learn how to fill in the blanks with phrases. And that's a great way to learn. But then as we go forward, we want to be able to describe things. The porcupine walks slowly, etc., etc. And I'll share a bunch of phrases with you that just sort of help us kind of think about this stuff. But for example, to be descriptive about things is also kind of giving your opinion about some things too. So when we get into higher forms of fluency, we want to start thinking about opinions, theories, speculation, tying things to things that have already happened, and that's for any language, trying to get to these sort of higher forms. And then in Tlingit, it's also trying to get up to these other sort of verb modes, which those would be the Tuesday conversations. But for the Thursday, we just want to have a nice, casual, laid-back conversation. My role is to try and keep it going, help where I can. My goal will be to do less correction and more just sort of trying to keep us going. And then maybe if there's certain things I note, I might talk about them the following Tuesday, just to say, here's some things that might help to be able to do these. Because we want to become, and we saw Nyashahush Sam Johnston use this phrase. He said something like, Kwahituasugu hayukatangi yishagugu. That's how he said it, yishagugu. And I remember some people listening say, I think he meant to say yisakuwu. So what is the difference between yisaku and yishaguk?
Gook is like a different verb. Mm-hmm. So ku is the verb root to know, and gook is the verb root that's like to master something, right? Right.
So like from his perspective, I think when you say Tlingit yisaku, you know the Tlingit language. But then Tlingit yishaguk, for me, it's now you know how to put it together and also to receive it. And so to move us outside of classroom language, that's the goal for Thursdays. And we might bring some folks in to just talk with us. Some of them might be folks who've learned as a second language. Hopefully we can get a few elders in here to chat with us. And so that's what we're going to try to do. That's the way it was. So ye away is that's how it is. So you could say it depends. We got to give this one a little bit of context, because for things to just be in Tlingit, that's yati. So wuti, you could use that one. That's the way it used to be. So you could say something like this. Yewe wutiyin, that's how it used to be, but it's not like that anymore. But it kind of depends, because, you could also say, that's how it happened. So kind of, I think it gets a little bit funny when it starts talking about, because they would also say, and it could get pretty complicated, because you could say something like, ye away. Ades kanugu, yeah. So you could say something like that, which is, this is how, and Tlingit is very indirect a lot of times when you're talking about the elders, the ancestors, the ancient ones. So if we said something like this, yeah, ades kanugu, yeah, that's how they used to, that's how they were, that's how they behaved. And so you're just sort of talking about this, in the context of our culture, these are some things, that's a phrase you could use to say that's the way that the old people used to do it a long time ago. So, you could also say things like, Tlingit Kusti. That is how Tlingit culture is. So there's some different things, so it kind of, we got to tie it to some context. If we're going to use that one, that's the way it was. There's also, you could say some things like this. Yewechasaku. That's how I know it, right? So this is a way to sort of sometimes soften some things, like especially if you're telling a story or some, whenever we engage in these Thursday classes, I really want to stress that it's not a ceremonial act. It's not a big oratory type of thing. It's just practice. It's just us living in the language, just kind of having fun. There might be a chance that people will watch these classes someday and maybe have some critiques about what we're trying to do. But what we're trying to do is just create this environment where we can just use the language, and it's not going to be something that causes us to hesitate, but it's something that we just embrace. So as we think of more things, let's put those out there. So let's do a few more of these. Let me drag this over so you all can't see. So we'll take turns just naming it. I'm going to get the TV remote in case I need to turn it up. We had our first major technical difficulty in this room. Okay. Who wants to tell me in Tlingit what this thing is? Oh, it's this thing right here. Tlingit.
Shao.
Shao. Yeah, So let's go. Oops. Oh, that didn't work at all. Okay. Well, the next ones might be a little easier. So what would the possessed form of this be? Anybody?
Shao.
Yeah, Shao. Oops. Okay, there. Maybe I've got it under control. Táax'aa. Anyone who hasn't gone yet? Shayena. Ye'anaqa. Shayena.
Shayena.
And if this were possessed? Yeah. So this would do one of these things. The double A becomes short, and everything stays low. It's just one of these exceptions. Táax'aa. Like, it looks like a general, but he's got the curly horns. General has the little ones. Taway. Yeah. Taway.
Taway.
And these ones always get confused because in the old, this is like this residual thing. I think in the Orange Noun Dictionary, they had them listed, they had them backwards. So they had mountain goat as taway, and they had mountain sheep as general. Also, when they were doing translations of the Bible a long time ago, they were like, and then he led the sheep, and then this was the word they were using for sheep. And it was really weird for Tlingit people because they were herding the mountain sheep. Okay. Possess it. Yeah. Tawayi. So we go from high to low. Táax'aa. Tana. Tana. And this is not one of those double A's. So when we possess it, tanayi, so it's going to stay high, right? Because the double A ones, they should be low. Yataqa Táax'aa.
I know the translation, but I don't know the word.
Táax'aa.
Utki?
Hmm?
Utki?
That's close.
Ah.
Yuka oot. Yuka oot. And the old timers would say ka yuka ooty. So do we remember what the oot is in here?
Isn't it translated as octopus sucker?
Yeah, so an oot is an octopus sucker. So that's the name of a button. The old name is a person's octopus sucker, which is a pretty cool name. So let's just stick with the shortened version, the possessed form. Yuka oot-i. Right? We'll do a few more. Yataqa Táax'aa. Zait, yeah, and if you're gonna own this, Zaidi. Right, so the T to the D, and that goes high tone. Yataqa Táax'aa. Sa. Owning it. Sa ye.
Táax'aa. I like, you know. It's so funny. I never thought of that.
What if there was a seal and he said, Sa aya Táax'aa ye? We do Táax'aa ye. I don't know if it would work. We'll make it work somehow. This one, on Kwei, it cannot take a possessive marker because it already has one. So that's just a good thing. As you learn more about how Tlingit works, you'll just learn to spot these relational suffixes. Kwei with the Y on there, so Kweiy is a marker. On Kwei, land marker. Each Kwei is a buoy, and it's a reef marker. I think there's several others, but so that one, the possessed form would just be the same. Yataqa Táax'aa.
Eat plus get.
Yeah, way. Eat. Egg and cheese. And if you had one of your very own, chide. Right, so these are just continuing to think about these rules of how it works. Táax'aa yataqa. Incheyi. This one, I don't know. It looks like it has a relational thing to me, but we're just gonna say you can't own it because I don't know how to say it. Yataqa uchiai. Speak, yeah. And if for whatever reason you had one, sige. Right, so that same rule applies. My grandma said when they were real little, her uncles and dad, I think, hunted a bear, and then they found it had a cub, so they brought it home. And they used to play with it, and it'd scratch them all up. It's a long time ago. Okay, so let's transition back into our Táax'aa story, just to sort of get us caught up to where we've been. We'll go through these really quick. So this is Shadang Etachshkatnik. He is Qakwedi Dakwedi Yadi, born in 1893, passed away in 1974. So as he's telling this story, and we think about him being a young man owning boats, that's in the really early 1900s. The first line, Awe we achja guyikt, guide you to Sagen, ayekteweet nacha kuch askeu. I used to go around, it was this boat of mine, it was called Guide. I would travel around in it seining. Awe yechat du asaq Tlingit chinach shadag. Well, I am called in Tlingit shadag, which was Shah is a mountain around residing. It's a really old village. Away ya achsai ginach away owechat buchuch git wain chagu ai chagu na. It was through my name Git Wayne called me over, the one of long ago. He died long ago. So this is a really interesting, we talked about this a little bit. What that would be saying is somebody called me over through my name, which is just saying there's some clan relationship, there's something going on with the name that they're going to explain, and that's so that's why that phrase is being used that way. Where'd my mouse go? Yis yadok chatzati. I'm a young man. So as we listen to stories too, we just pay attention to how their sense of time is sort of fluctuating. They go past tense, present tense. Richard Dauenhauer had a theory that people generally tell stories using perfective verbs, but they'll switch to an imperfective or some sort of progressive imperfective, which would basically be some more present tense verb to switch some sort of scene. It's almost like we cut to a new part of the story. From the time, or just when I was just a young man, from that time I had a gas-powered boat. A couple things we noted in here was Yis Yaduk is like just becoming a young man. So I would say it's probably 12, 13 years old. Yaduk means a long time ago, probably old enough to arrange a marriage, right? So we have Shadk and Yaduk, and that's when they're getting old enough to start doing that kind of business. Yis is new, so Yis Yaduk would mean just became a young man. And then Chatzati Yidach, from that time that I was a young man. So I've seen this used in other contexts as people talk about in their life. So you might say like an elder, one time I heard her say, Shatkiatsko Chatzati Yidach Ja'achklatin Atchagut Táax'aa, something like that. From the time I was a little girl, I would go with my mom after berries, right? And so the dach and the day they're used as time references as well. Achjiyewuti is the verb form to possess something. So achjiwu, ejiwu. Achjiyewuti is how you would put that into the past tense. You could say achjiyewutiyin, like I had it but I don't anymore. Achjideyekwati, I'm gonna have it. There's ways to talk about it like that, but that's how you make that phrase into a verb. I had 1906 model. From when they first came out. So he's saying he had these boats, these motorboats, when they first started making them. We've got to keep the sort of context of his life in mind. There were two of them, these big boats. I had these two big boats. Yahuchi ai awe achyit jit chwasati. The last one I gave to my son. So this was another thing we noted, was you can just say achyit jit chwasati, or you could say ach tla jiyeti. My mother has it, right? Ach ish jit chwasati. I gave it to my father. He wrecked the boat. Then, is then, it's a time marker. This is the one I used to really go around in. So ayikt is how we get into, that's being inside of a boat. That one I went around in. Qunakh, I really went around in it. Okay, I don't think we did this one yet. So I think we should take our break and we'll come back and we'll do quite a few of these. And what I want to do is basically we'll listen to it. He'll say it twice. I can't remember how far I got into the story with the audio. And I'll try and finish it so we get through this whole story. But basically, we'll take a look at it. Ideally, we'll all take turns reading it for Chukan. I know you don't have a microphone, but I'll just sort of pause and I'll let you read it. And then I want us to collectively work on translating these. And so we can help find the verb and we can help sort of figure out what some things are. And then we'll sort of reveal it. But I want us to get used to doing a little bit of this legwork in translation where we go into dictionaries and other things and just start trying to piece these things together, and then if we're stuck, we'll just sort of we'll move on. But that's what we'll start. We'll take a few 5, 6, 7 minutes, and we'll get back together and start here. Sheesh. So here comes the first one. Oh, hold on. Let's see where it's going.
يقدر سبقها أو الأقصى يقدر سبقها.
Okay, anybody want to read this?
Away, Táax'aa, Asku, away.
Okay, sheesh. So what do we recognize here? Let's try and get as much of this as we can, just collectively. And we should note how people are using aweh. Like aweh is just, you don't always have to translate that. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Aweh can be used to signal, I'm still talking, I would like to talk. We're changing sort of subjects in the sentence, or there's a number of different things. Or sometimes it just creates a little bit of space in between some concepts. Sometimes it calls focus to particular things. But what do we recognize in here? Táax'aa, Chukan says, my name. Asku is a very contracted form of ausaku. He or she knows it. What about yechat yausaqa?
Is that something like I said it? Or?
Well, so the khat is there, so he said to me.
Oh.
Right? And so, and there's a slight difference between yawaqa and yausaqa. So we see the classifier changing. Yawaqa would be like he or she said it. Yausaqa means, it could mean a couple of different things. I am quoting them word for word. So it's a little bit more sort of specific. Like they said this exact thing. Which is probably the case here, but it could also be to promise to someone, and so it changes the meaning a little bit. So let's take a look at the breakdown of this. So we see to say, right? Yausaqa, asku. Then, knowing what my name was, Geetwain said to me, someone who didn't read last time.
Tuach ayasadu ein kunachtach kach wanigi ya isayi.
Chish isayi. Okay. Okay. What do we recognize here?
They're talking about the previous person's name, right? Because Sai is name and E is theirs.
Well, is your.
Oh, yeah.
So then you're saying, so like this is, so we get it in quotation marks. It's like, he said to me something about your name.
Yeah.
Right? So now, so the context, like, so this guy Geetwain says to Shah Dog, Ach tuwak ayasigu. And how would we translate that part? Ach tuwak ayasigu. What about ach tuwasagu? Do we know that one? Ach tuwasagu. Anyone?
I want.
I want. So ach tuwak ayasagu is the same thing. It's the same thing. Sometimes you're going to get that tuwak on there, especially if there's. So this is a verb. So this is sort of an indirect object kind of that comes out here. Ach tuwak ayasigu. You could also say ach tuwak isagu. I want you, right? And so I want this one. In Are there any parts that you guys recognize from that? So we know I want blank your name. So we got this big thing in the blank right here. Ein. What about that part?
You something?
Yes. What's the something? Anybody know the something? Ein. Tell you a story. So Táax'aa says, I want to tell you a story about your name. This is getting very close. So ein would be with you or to you. Usually with you is how that would be literally translated. Kachwaniki is I told it. But whenever you put qunakhdaq, that's a combination that goes in front of that verb kachwaniki, and that means to explain. So this is how Tlingit does certain things. Like sometimes there's a verb, but then you add a couple of words in front of it, and now you got a related but different verb. So you could say, Ach in qunakhdaq akawanik. He explained it to me, or she explained it to me. So I want to explain your name to you, right? I would like to explain to you this name of yours. So there's a bunch of really fun things that go on in here, how this sort of gets put together. So we see Neek is the verb, gu is the verb root. So there's two verbs in here. Achtuwak ayasigu, in qunach dak kachwanigi, ya isayi. So the main part of this is this explaining, which gets put right into the middle. I want to explain your name. Anybody want to read that?
Táax'aa Táax'aa.
Okay. So what do we recognize here?
Is Táax'aa inland?
Yes, Táax'aa is inland. So Daq is to kind of the direction to go inland. Táax'aa is the inlet to say the place, the interior. So you Táax'aa, so that interior way over there. And we get the verb. So there's no verb there. It's just sort of explaining. The aya we see provides a little bit of just separation, and then we get to the verb. Ach ye ha wuti. Anybody know how that one's working?
Ach is like there,
Mm-hmm.
and Yehautich is like we were.
Yeah, and it's repeatedly, like, so it's almost like we went there often, or we were there. And so the repeated suffix is really interesting because it's saying we used to live there. Maybe we lived other places, but we would live there too. Auch is used like this when we say we've already referred to this place. So at that place, Yehavutir. So we used to live there. Yep.
Táax'aa Táax'aa Táax'aa.
Who hasn't read yet?
Tlingit utir Táax'aa.
Okay. So what do we recognize with this one?
Our
Anything?
way of life.
Our way of life, yeah. So our way of life. So whenever we see haqsti, sometimes that just sort of we think our culture, but it could just be our life, our existence. It's a really interesting verb because haqsti would just mean our existence, our living, our being. You could also, there's a variation, a different, very closely related verb. So you could say qutusti, which was we are existing. So there's a little bit more of an action to it. And then we get the ach, so our life at that place. And so we see how Tlingit does this stuff too. Once we've talked about that place, now we could just keep referring to it because it's already in our consciousness. So now we just get to this top part. Táax'aa wutir. What is wutir? So we can pull up the verb dictionary, and we're going to look for tir. So we go down to the Tlingit to English part. There's the T with the apostrophe. We'll go down, tish, teek, teek. To be hard, difficult. Right? So it could be, there's a related verb here which is like to harden, to solidify, to freeze. So in the context of this, kach means very. Our life was very difficult there, right? It was so hard, our life there, right? So there's lots of different ways as you sort of engage in the act of translation. How would you say that in English? And there's several different options. But basically, our life there very difficult.
Yachad. Yachad.
Who wants to read this one?
Yachad.
Okay. Translation. The salmon. Right? Aditsadu tuasuko tu.
Ya kad. Ha
Okay. Cheesh. What do we recognize from here? What do we know? Because we figure out what we know, and then we figure out what we've got to find. What's 8?
From the ocean.
Yeah, 8 kadach. From the ocean. Yachat is the salmon. Sorry, I keep talking over someone. Go ahead.
People from.
Well, so in this case, we're getting like from the ocean, or this could be salt. And once we get the larger context, whenever you see 8, I would suggest think of it as ocean, unless something shows you that it's salt. And then yachat, we've got the salmon. And then that sort of gets us down to our verb, ha'e ke'akch. Anybody recognize anything, or can we spot the verb root that we're going to have to look up? Or both? What's ha'e?
Our mouth.
Our mouth. So now, from the ocean, something our mouth, and then we've got ke'akch. Anybody know that, or should we look it up?
It's like for them to swim, right?
Yes, so
Or
this
like
is
to
fish.
migrate.
This is how
But it's
fish
the way
swim.
that they swim, right?
Yes, things that swim underwater and can do it fast. Michael Phelps. Fish. So ya'et kadach ha'ekekach yachad. These salmon would swim up from the ocean to our mouths. It's a very neat way to talk about from the ocean they would swim up for us to eat these salmon. But just the way he talks about it is really fun, right? Because it's like they just keep swimming up to our mouth. And so that's how he's talking about it. So you'll see when Tlingit chooses to use metaphor, it's always interesting how it does so. What do you recognize here?
Quick question about more.
Okay, go ahead. Wait.
Does the ch at the end of a verb make it repeated, like repeatedly?
Yeah, so there are several ways that a verb can be put into a repetitive form. The ch is going to be one that usually puts it into this, what we call a perfective habitual, which means every time. So there's different ways that Tlingit takes care of repetition. But there's three general categories of repetition in Tlingit. There's like every time. For example, every day when she wakes up, she eats cornflakes. Every single day. And that would be the CH one. Like, it's just something that always happens. And then there's something that just happens regularly. Like, she eats cornflakes. She might eat other things, but she definitely eats cornflakes. That one is taken care of with, you'll either see a K or an underline X, or sometimes a T, and sometimes nothing. But that one's like, you do a saw. Like it happens regularly, but maybe not all the time. Where the CH, and the CH doesn't have to be like every single time, but it's sort of like all the time. Whereas the K and the other ones are regularly. Then there's ones that get sort of like a whole bunch at once, like sewing. So there's a whole bunch of repeated motions, and that's one motion. And also sometimes you'll get a CH for like pounding something on the head. So it's a bunch of things that happen at once, but it's still one contained sort of motion. So that's the way that Tlingit takes care of it. And so for that one, for this K-ukch, that means like it just keeps happening. It just happens over and over and over. So basically what's contained within this one sentence is like the seasons, the life, these fish, they always swim up to us for us to eat. And so you see how Tlingit takes care of that, and it's really interesting because it could do so much in a short space by controlling the way these verbs are working. And so you guys will learn how to put verbs like this together. But this, the nachekuch and the keukch, that's the same, those are the same types of verbs where you're seeing it, like it's just something that was always happening. Okay, what do we know about this one? There's yachat. Should be able to get that part.
Something good to say.
Yeah, good. So when you say, so yak'e is good. What about ha'che yak'e? Do we know that one?
Tasted good to us.
Yeah. So when you say like ach'che yak'e, it's delicious. It tastes good to me. Ha'che yak'e, it tastes great. It tastes good. The salmon. And then this, what's going on here, a'aya. A'aya is something used a lot in oratory. You're really calling attention to what you're about to say. Táax'aa yachsaya ha'keyake. This combines to basically say, like, Táax'aa yachsaya ha'keyake. Nothing tastes better to us. You know, there's different ways you can interpret this. So you've got very dot yachsawe or dot yachsaya. What could be like it, tasting so delicious? This salmon, right? And so, whoops, I don't know how that got in there. It's teaching something else. I get rid of these two. This is what it is, so good tasting to us, the salmon, right? And so there's ways that Tlingit can do some things to really ramp things up, right? So you could say ha'cheyak'e, kach'cheyak'e. So ha'cheyak'e, it's delicious. Kach'cheyak'e, it's very delicious. Táax'aa yachsaya ha'cheyak'e. It's almost saying like, what could be this delicious? What could be as delicious as this? Or you could also say, there's nothing more delicious. And so these are good things to learn how to do so you could really ramp up some of your compliments, your sort of and Tlingit sometimes likes to do this, where it like puts things way at the top, like nothing can surpass this, you know. So we hear people who use these sort of superlatives and hyperbole, like I am the least racist person, right? And so there's Tlingit does these things as well. Like you could say, my uncle used to say that, which is, my gratitude has killed me, right? And so you could really go over the top with some of your Tlingit. And a lot of times it's being fun or funny. In oratory, it's also just sort of exploring some of these things. How far could you take the language? So when we look at like Robert Zuboff, and we look at A.P. Johnson, and we look at some of these other storytellers, like there's reasons why people were going to them to have them record stories, because they knew how to do this stuff with the language. So the combination of repetition, we keep saying yachad, yachad, yachad. So we start, it's just getting put into our mind how important the salmon are. Somebody translate this one. What's qunach? Yes, very difficult. So here we've got qunach, really yat'ich, difficult. Qusti, so qusti, yudaqqa. Qusti is the unpossessed form of haqusti. So we see those possessive rules come on there. If something ends with a high and short vowel, when we put that possessive marker on it, it's going to go long and low. Qusti. Ha qusti. Qusti is life. So you see he's repeating what he said before, but he's saying it different. So instead of wut-ich, it's yet-ich. So now it moves into an imperfective form. Ha-qusti. He just says qusti, life. So there's all kinds of, the word order changes, the way they're being talked about. It's saying the same thing. Life in the interior is really difficult. What? Which is what do we got going on here?
It's like I'm having a hard time saying it. How bad was it? It was like, right, because it's like a riddle.
Right, yeah, and so Tlingit likes to do these types of things too, where you get this sort of question. It looks like a question, but it isn't, right? What? How difficult was it? Like, that could be a question, right? You know, like you could say, what? How difficult was it? You know, is it? But instead, it's not really a question. It is. It's a riddle. It's sort of formed in a bit of a question, but then we get the sort of the response after. Do we know what antqini is? Have we heard that before? Anyone?
Children of the land.
Yeah, it's the villagers, the people of the village. Yep. Táax'aa wuch ischa. So Táax'aa, that's just calling attention to what's going on. This one probably shouldn't be high tone either. Oops. Wuch ischa.
Which is together.
Wuch is together. Cha is a verb root.
They ate each other.
That's right.
Oh no.
So people are, how hard, you know, so it was so difficult that the town people ate each other, right? Some people, right? Táax'aa wuch ischa. So the I is like a kind of a peg vowel. Ischa, like People were doing this. It was happening. Antqini. Khusakhan Qudzati Wekao. Anyone want to translate that?
Is Kusakha, is that part of Kusakhan? No?
No, so Khusakhan, so Khusakha. So we see this, Wuch Ischa. So Ischa. So we've seen like Awacha, to eat he or she ate something. Ausecha would be to eat something in like little parts or sometimes to completion. So Sacha would be eating people. Kwan, it's such an interesting name because Kwan usually refers to people of a place. But in this case, Kusacha, the people that are eating people. So that's the word we have for cannibals, and particularly this sort of cannibal giant sometimes in this story. I think its name is, somebody told me one time. I'll have to check my notes. But they got a kutiya, gauze of it in Klakwan. It's Khusakha Kwan Kudzati Wekao. What's Kudzati? To exist. Wegao, that time. The cannibal existed at that time. Okay, we'll do one more, then we'll do some verb drills and we'll go home. Awe adayuk atutla atginuch. Ya eight kade hawlagazi. Hawlgazi. What do we recognize here? Ada. What's that part?
Around.
Yeah, around it or about it. Then we get a verb. Yuchatutla atkinuch. Anybody know that one? What would we look up to find this one? Aunt. So let's go.
Wouldn't it be Utk or no?
Let me pull it up. So for this one, oops, we're going to look on here. So we'll go up to ought, which will be this one. And then en, da, you. That's close, but not with the t. We're looking for the ch. En, da. Oh, I guess it's kind of here. So did you see it somewhere else?
Isn't it up a little? Right there? Speak, talk to him or her, plural. Is that not the right?
Oh, it's related, so it's going to be this one. You. So this is where, so the K to go back to Táax'aa's earlier question, there are some verbs, like even in an imperfective form, where you're going to get this repeated, this is where the U comes from. U plus the K at the end. It's like this thing that happens, because if you're going to have a conversation, it's this back and forth type of thing. It's this thing that happens in a bunch of small little actions. So that's why you get yu khatilla atk, yu khatilla atkinuch, ada yu khatilla atkinuch. We always talk about it. That's how we translate. The nuch means like all the time. Ada yu khatilla atkinuch. We always talk about it. So there's the t is the us, sha'atki. And then when we're going to see this is very closely related to yu khatangi. That's why you get that GI on there, because it comes from yu khatunk, to talk. Yu khatilla atkinuch. Ya h kade how shagasi. So we're going to look up this God's part, and we'll go to the verb dictionary, go to the G's. We remember G double E to the EI to the OO. And this is how they alphabetize it, where the A's come last. Gao, ga, gon, gaz. So then we sort of see, and then we can go back. How wushagazi, shagaz, to move our household, to migrate. Ya h kade ha wushgazi, our migration to the coast. H Tlingit, Tlingit. That was what we would always talk about when we migrated to the coast. So this is another thing we just sort of see. We constantly think about the way Tlingit thinks, the way the language pushes you to think. You have named something. That's how difficult life was in the interior. We talked about it all the time when we migrated to the coast, right? So that's telling you a lot. Like, Tlingit people lived in the interior, life was hard, people were eating each other, let's go to the coast, right? So, what he does in this oratory is he's showing you just really important things to Tlingit people. And he shows you that importance by using just really interesting ways to talk about things, in particular with repetition, but repetition that keeps varying, so it's saying the same thing but in slightly different ways. Any thoughts? Okay. So this is how you start sort of looking up. So, and the interesting thing is there's so many verbs, and just to start continuing to challenge yourself to learn more. And one way is to go into stories and to actively translate. And so some of these, they help. Like this story it's in Hashika. It's one of the first stories in there. But what you don't have is how do you get from the Tlingit to the English? So sometimes if you're looking for exercises or maybe presentations or things like that, activities, it's just this sort of more detailed translation so that we can understand how the language is working. And then challenging yourself to use these phrases and verbs in your own day-to-day language, right? So wushgats, how shagats would be like we migrated there. And so this is how you could start incorporating this into family history, clan history, community history, those types of things. There's lots of ways you can start using these things in your own sort of day-to-day language use. And these were the masters. Like Robert Zuboff, his Tlingit is just super high level, really amazing stuff. And then like this whole story is about leading up to this, how mosquitoes were born. But what's really fun is like he hasn't even really gotten to the story yet. He's got to do all this other framing of it. Life was hard. I had these boats, and so doing lots of stuff to get to that story. It's really fun. How he does that. Okay, so something we can do that's a little bit more, just requires us to not think so hard, because sometimes you got to think really hard looking at those verbs and stuff. It's just going back to learning these verbs at the end of beginning Tlingit, how it shows us, just doing me, you, she, or he. So we'll run through some of these. That's how we'll wrap up week 1. So you see the translation over here. As we do these again, we focus on changing the subject. So the subject is right here in between the thematic prefix and the classifier. Wasaqu wanuk.
Wasakuanuk.
Wasaqiyanuk.
Wasakianuk.
Wasaqchanuk.
Wasakuchanuk.
And then this shows you the pieces that are there. So this plus this plus this plus this, you get that. Okay. I-a, cha-a, hun, i-hun, cha-hun, at-cha, at-i-cha, at-cha-cha, at-dana, at-idna, at-chadana. And that could, like if someone said, what are you doing? And you said, at-chadana, they might think you're drinking alcohol. Just the at sometimes has its own special meaning, just in a few different things. But the goal of this is learning how to, they're trying to freeze the object so it's not there. And there's ways to do that. At-tluk, at-itluk, at-chaluk. So that's how you sip tea and coffee. At-een, at-een, at-cha'een, at-gas'i, at-gis'i, at-gachas'i, at-sa'i, at-isa'i, at-chasa'i. And as you go further with this stuff, like the challenge is, it would be like once you feel like you've got these verbs down, just say, in the future, the perfective, and so we'll start doing some of that stuff too. Dachash, idachash, chadachash, dachitku, idachitku, chadachitku. So this one gets this KW because again, it's a bunch of little, like sweeping. It's a bunch of little things that in Tlingit is considered one action. Da'usk, ida'usk, chada'usk, daqais, idaqais, chadaqais, kadachak, kidachak, kachdachak, kasne, kisne, kachasne. And these ones, the sort of the way they're teaching these, and it's sort of like you're doing just like little actions, right? It's like, what are you doing? I'm weaving, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Achun, ichun, achachun, asqewu, isqewu,
Isqewu.
Achasqewu,
Achasqewu.
Asteich,
Asteich.
Isteich,
Isteich.
Achasteich,
Achasteich.
At und,
At und.
At I und,
At I und.
Atcha und,
Atcha und.
Datu,
Datu.
Idatu,
Idatu.
Chadatu,
Chadatu.
Stuat Iltu,
Stuat Iltu.
Stuat Iltu,
Stuat Iltu.
Stuat Chaltu,
Stuat Chaltu.
Kashhid,
Kashhid.
Kishhid,
Kishhid.
Kachashhid,
Kachashhid.
Atshe,
Atshe.
At Ishe,
At Ishe.
At Chashe,
At Chashe.
Atseich,
Atseich.
Itseich,
Itseich.
Achatseich,
Achatseich.
Dagwash,
Dagwash.
Idagwash,
Idagwash.
Chadagwash.
Chadagwash.
It can also be you, I'm stabbing. Qach,
Qach.
Iqach,
Iqach.
Chaqach,
Chaqach.
Atshuk,
Atshuk.
At Ishuk,
At Ishuk.
At Chashuk,
At Chashuk.
Utuwatunk,
Utuwatunk.
Utiyatunk,
Utiyatunk.
Utuchatunk,
Utuchatunk.
Uchayatunk,
Uchayatunk.
Uchiyatunk,
Uchiyatunk.
Uchachatunk,
Uchachatunk.
Shkashnik,
Shkachnik.
Shkilnik,
Shkiklik.
Shkachashnik,
Shkachashnik.
Yejene,
Yejene.
Yejine,
Yejine.
Yejechane,
Yejechane.
Ashkuchet,
Ashkuchet.
Ashkichet,
Ashkichet.
Ashkuchachet,
Ashkuchachet.
Chusuk,
Chusuk.
Choyisuk,
Choyisuk.
Chuchasuk,
Chuchasuk.
Chudech,
Chudech.
Chushugu,
Chushugu.
Chuklei,
Chuklei.
Chukleich,
Chuklei.
Cheich,
Cheich.
Chin,
Chin.
Kachakwa,
Kachakwa.
Eish,
Eish.
God,
God.
Yesh,
Yesh.
Teeth,
Teeth.
Tachat,
Táax'aa.
Plum, Ook, Ag,
Ag.
Achkate,
Kate.
Chukti, Kachita. Okay. Anybody got any questions? Then I got a question. What is going to help you at this point?
I think just more active translation and conversation, really.
Yeah, I think we reach this point where there's some drilling and some stuff like that, and more lists, and we'll keep going over these lists of things. But we really got to try and sort of like touch and go on that stuff. It's like, here's a bunch of lists. There's no way to get around learning these big lists of things, because Tlingit likes to it assembles all these different things, and it's like these big categories where you could pick something from here, pick something from here. And you got to do some of that sort of analytical stuff, but then you got to do some of the organic stuff where you're just sort of translating and then just talking, trying to talk and trying to understand. And so that's one of our big goals. And we just have to be ready as we sort of, we're 2 weeks away from trying our first sort of Immersion Thursday. And so we've got some time to get ready. Think about the things that might make you nervous about it. Think about the things that you might think you need. And the big thing is totally fine to have misfires, where we don't understand each other, or we're not sure what's going on, and we just sort of take the thing in a different direction. It's totally okay. But I think the more we do this, the more we'll find that it helps the language emerge naturally. So we figured some of this stuff out by actually going places and going to immersion events, and there will be several events coming up. I think there's going to be an immersion perhaps here in Juneau in April. I think Huna in May or June. And then I think there's talk of Carcross possibly in August or somewhere around there. So I'll keep you guys in the loop with what I hear about that kind of stuff. But then it could also, these are things that could become sort of community activities where the language, you're a member of the language community, and we're not all in the same place, but there might be ways to sort of have a weekend getaway or an evening or something like that, where we're going to start dedicating our time towards language production. And so this is the thing, and we want to think of ways to keep it fun, to keep it light, and to keep ourselves talking, hopefully so that everybody has a chance to interact. And those of you who are online, so that you feel like you could just jump on into the conversation, even though sometimes we got to mute and unmute and stuff like that, but we'll figure out ways to make that work for us, and then to sort of just get into this, develop a rhythm, a pattern that becomes familiar to us. Any other thoughts? Any other things that you feel like you need or that would help?
How the verb database that you've been using?
Say that again.
How can I find the verb database that you've been using in class?
Oh, okay, yeah. Sheesh. So if you go to a web search and you enter Tlingit verbs, one of the first things to come up should be this online Tlingit verb dictionary. This is the one you want to use. It's at the Alaska Native Knowledge Network. And you could bookmark it. So when you click it, it takes you to here, and you want to click on the Tlingit index. And what I do, I just leave this thing open on my computer. I also leave it open on my phone because sometimes your web browser wants to reload things. But I found on my phone, even if I don't have an internet connection, as long as I keep this page open, I can look up all this stuff. I don't need the internet to make these things go. So these are the verb roots, and it has maybe 25% of all the verb roots in here. So what she tried to do was get the most commonly used things. It was a really amazing project. And so then you could go into here, and then it shows you the different verbs listed under that verb root. Then you could click in the yellow to get it to come down, and then it shows you these different verb modes, and some of them have they're conjugated for person as well. So those are the two main ways you could change a verb, is by the mode, which is really the mode is saying like command form, prohibitive form saying don't do it, imperfective, now or on a regular basis, and so on and so forth, and then by person. And not all of them are conjugated by person, but you can actually teach yourself how to conjugate these by person. And so that's one thing we're going to work on, especially towards the end of the semester, is just a whole bunch of drills to say, well, it's kind of a sneak preview. As I was sitting with Táax'aa and Ish, and I said, I love you, I love him, I love y'all, I love them. And we did all the possible combinations. And then we got to the negatives, and it's like, I don't love you. And his wife's in the next room, and she goes, Sean! And so we'll do that stuff so that you can sort of really get in. So a lot of that is, it pushes your brain because you're really just trying to, and then, so we'll do a bunch of that stuff, and then we'll also predict a bunch of that stuff. That's what we got to teach ourselves, is how to predict these things. And then how to just use these things in the context of conversation. An older verb database. Which one might they be talking about?
Is it the scanned yellow book?
Well, then, there's the yellow book. There's also, if you go to Tlingit language.
575, that one too.
Yeah, well, there used to be the 475 verbs, but in this one, the one that we just looked at, has all of those and more. Under resources, there's a number of different things in here too. Tlingit math book. We might be the Tlingit verb dictionary. These are all scanned too, so you can use these so you can search. You can do searches in them. So this is where you get the yellow one. It's black and white in here, but this is the yellow verb dictionary, and then you could download this to your computer. You could download it to your phone or your pads, whatever you have. If you have a device, it should have this on there. And then there's the noun dictionary as well. I've been trying to consolidate most of the stuff that I have. This might be one of those lifelong projects, but under resources, if you go to dictionary, this one I update about every 2 or 3 months, and I try to put new words in there and where I have heard these words from, or who found them, or who put them together. It has a lot of the verbs in here, and then it has just sort of new, maybe words that weren't listed. So it's a long sort of project, but between those, so if you have that, and I think I also put one up here so you could say, I think you go tlingitlanguage.com/media, and then nouns. If you just put media/nouns, if it works still, it's a huge list of nouns that I got from Jeff Lear's work. And there's more nouns in here than in any of the other dictionaries. So I'm working on taking this list, putting it into a dictionary. It's an amazing list. There's tons of stuff in here. There's a lot of things in there I'd never seen in other places. And then I think there's, what's the other one I put in here? Nouns. Give me 1 second. And then I think if you just type Tlingit. I'll find it for you guys, but I've got I've got that whole dictionary on a website as well. So it's not the best way to look at it, but it is another way. So yeah, we'll look at other resources next week. So just keep thinking about these things. We'll push this Táax'aa story a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, hucha. Cheesh.